Do you ever wake up with a mental list of what needs to get done right away and immediately get overwhelmed because you have for sure overcommitted yourself? Or spent time reviewing at the end of the day the tasks you didn't get done, the message you forgot to send, or just wishing that the things you did get done you had done better? Please tell me I'm not alone. Most of us quietly worry that if we aren't going fast, if we just slow down a little bit or set boundaries or have a limit, that we're letting God down. But our limits aren't the place God is disappointed in us. They're actually where God's grace most often meets us very clearly.
We want to share a really important truth. Your limitations are not mistakes. They're actually gifts from a gracious God. And if we can understand that, that's going to change our Christian lives dramatically.
Yeah, our world ties worth to performance. Do more, be more, achieve more. And even in our spiritual lives, we might think that being exhausted is a signal that we're disorganized and that any internal struggle is like a lack of faith. But what if, quote unquote, reaching our limits isn't a problem?
Yeah.
What if it's feeling our limits is actually God's way of bringing us closer to Him? It's part of the Christian life. Limitations are a key part of the Christian life. It's an invitation to experience God's unlimited strength.
In 1 Kings 18, Elijah does one of the boldest moves in all of Scripture, and he calls on God. God shows up in fire and power and consumes a sacrifice in front of a bunch of people who didn't believe in him. He proved that the Lord is the one true God and not any others. It's one of the most courageous moments in the Bible, but then in the next chapter, chapter 19, the queen threatens Elijah and he flees into the wilderness and then collapses and prays, "It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life." He was completely drained, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. He had reached his limit as a human, but God doesn't just shame him. Instead, God cares for him when he hits the wall. God comes and he sends an angel to attend to his physical needs before addressing his spiritual despair. What do you think about that story, Eve?
I mean, I appreciate Elijah's story immensely because it reminds me that feeling overwhelmed is part of being human.
Yeah.
Not something to be ashamed of. Bodies need rest, minds need quiet, souls need communion with God. And God knows it. He made our bodies, our minds, and our souls. Where we get into trouble is when we don't embrace those God-given limitations. The real problem is that we just keep trying to live like we have no limits. I mean, to be honest, really embracing limits is hard. Mm-hmm. I'm not very good at it. And for some of us, it comes easier than others. But many of us act like sleep, boundaries, and rest are our enemies, something to be avoided. Sometimes we think, or at least we act, like being holy means ignoring every sign that we need to just slow down. Mm. But the Bible teaches us a better way.
So on personality tests, I am almost always ranked as like the achiever or the performer.
No way.
So yeah, I know that's hard to believe as many years as we've been friends. So for me, like this is really personal because I have to fight super hard to not think of limits as just bad things by nature. Like I always want to work more. I always want to check off the next task on my to-do list. But man, especially when I was a single young professional, that just wrought havoc in my life because even when there wasn't work to do, I would still pile on more things on myself and then I would sort of crash or I would want to kind of cope and self-soothe in really unhealthful or sinful ways instead of looking to God and instead of resting, I would burn myself out. So we need to stop. We need to let God restore us like Elijah. But help us here. Like, tell us another passage that we can look at, Eve.
Yeah, one of my favorites is just realizing this reality that our weaknesses don't push God away, and He's not annoyed by them, right? He's not surprised by them, and He's not like, hurry up and get over it. They're opportunities to lean into His strength. So in 2 Corinthians 12, Paul talks about this thorn in the flesh. And we don't exactly know all the details of what it was or how long he'd been wrestling with it, but it was something that he wanted to get rid of, right? It's a weakness. It's something that he's not loving. It's making him feel really weak. And he asked the Lord 3 different times, like, will you just take this away? Can we be done with this part? Can we skip to the next part? I feel that deeply sometimes. But the Lord answers in 2 Corinthians 12:9, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Wow. If you just like sit with that for a minute, that answer really changed Paul and his ability to navigate that thorn in his flesh. And it can change us too.
Yeah, why is that?
I think it means that we are not self-sufficient, right? We don't, God's power isn't perfected when we're doing it all on our own in our self-sufficiency. It's perfected in weakness, in limitation. That's when we get to see his power the best. Weakness isn't easy, but it teaches something important. We aren't meant to handle life on our own. We're meant to be dependent. I felt weak in lots of areas of my adult life, in friendship, in decision-making, eventually in marriage, and now even in parenting. And I have asked the Lord often to remove those weaknesses, right? Like, kind of just like Elijah, like, can we skip to the good part? Like, what are we doing with all of this stuff? But God reminds me, his limitations that he's given me are an invitation for me to embrace it and to find him really strong in the midst of that. When I'm weak, he shows up. And I can see him a lot more clearly than thinking, oh, I figured that thing out. I did it. I achieved it. I just kept going and I muscled my way through it. And I think Jesus wants us to be free from that heavy burden of thinking that everything depends on us.
Yeah. And one more thought. I think limits prevent us from pride. Because if God's the one who's showing up and I'm weak, like, I'm suddenly just a lot more humble and grateful for what's going on than being able to snatch up all the credit.
Right.
So this is embarrassing, but now that I turned 40 this past year.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Yes. I signed up for a Thanksgiving Day race, which was all of like, I think maybe 2.5 miles, and did it on Thanksgiving Day. And man, at the end of it, like all I could get out was just like instead of vomiting, it was just like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. And I think we need more Thanksgiving Day races in our lives.
Yeah.
I think we need more opportunities where we have just pushed to our limits. We've done the best we can to be faithful. And we realize it's God who provided for us in our weakness. So kind of moving us from turning from being prideful to being worshipful.
Yeah. And let's remember, again, our worth is not based on our latest success, how many tasks we accomplished that day, what the to-do list looks like for this week. Jesus settled your value at the cross. We don't have to prove ourselves by being perfect or self-sufficient. So when we miss something or make a mistake, or we just need to physically lay down and rest, we can trust that God is still pleased with us. We're not trying to earn his approval.
Okay, so let's get practical. Let's maybe talk about 3 different ways that we can turn our kind of God-given limits over to the Lord this week. And I might start with one of them.
Great.
I think the first one for me would be at the start of each day, be honest with Jesus. Tell him where you need strength, where you need wisdom, or where you even need patience just because there's some issue going on that's taking longer than you want it to, or it's outside of your control, right? There's a lot of those in life. But tell him where you feel weak and invite him into it, because then it helps turn our weakness into trust in the Lord. And then it's an on-ramp into a closer relationship with him instead of being frustrated and pushing him away.
Yeah. I think a second thing that I am trying to learn myself is practice being present by saying no when you need to. I like to say yes to a lot of things. And I need to ask God for wisdom about what to take on and then trust him that he will cover where I'm lacking and trust him with what I'm letting go of and help me with my FOMO, right? One of the hardest lessons I discovered is that I just can't do everything for everyone all the time, as much as I'd love to, or sometimes wouldn't love to. I just can't do it either way. And when I say no to good things, I'm saying yes to the best things that God really has for me. And that includes rest. And so that brings me to number 3, treat rest as a form of worship. Make a plan for how and when you will rest, because it probably won't happen unless you make a plan for it. It's too easy to just keep going or say, oh, I have a few more things to do, or I want to finish this one last thing. Rest is something you need. It's not just a luxury. When you take care of your mind and your body by setting aside a Sabbath day, you take a break from being productive and spend time with God and the people you love, that's a way for you to draw closer to Him.
So, what's your next step this week? Name a limitation. Take some time and name one specific limit that you've been resisting. Maybe it's that you need to get to sleep earlier. Maybe it's there's a work project that just feels overwhelming. Maybe it's a friendship that you just can't fix. Offer it to God in prayer and let Him meet you there, knowing that you can really trust God to take care of things that are God-sized. So I think what will happen is then you'll notice God turning this limitation into something that becomes an opportunity to experience His power and experience His presence and experience His real provision for you in a very real way right now this week. Don't just embrace it on your own. Give it to God who cares for you. Thanks so much for joining us. We really hope this has been helpful. If it has, like this video and subscribe to this channel where you'll be getting more. And feel free to share this with a friend if they're figuring out their own limitations in life right now. I would totally invite you to check out binmin.org, where you are going to see all kinds of videos and articles that can be a help to you. And make sure you sign up for the Binmin newsletter so that in your inbox, you can be an insider who's getting previews, sneak peeks, and first resources to things that will help you take your next step in your spiritual life. Until next time, God bless.